If you're someone who rarely or never goes on dates, psychologists have identified 5 personality patterns that explain why. And it's not what people assume. It's not about being broken or antisocial. The real psychology behind this ranges from emotional maturity to social anxiety, and understanding which one applies to you changes everything. Real quick, if you're fascinated by human behavior and psychology like this, hit that subscribe button and comment below telling me where you're watching from. I love seeing how global this community is. All right, let's dive in. Dating culture has become so normalized that people who opt out are immediately labeled as having commitment issues or being afraid of intimacy. But research in social psychology tells a completely different story. People who don't date share 5 psychological patterns that range from intentional life choices to legitimate anxiety. Once you understand these patterns, you'll know exactly where you fit and what it means for you. First pattern you have: exceptionally high self-sufficiency. Here's what researchers found interesting. People who don't date often have deeply fulfilling lives that aren't missing anything. You're not avoiding dates because you're incomplete. You're avoiding them because you're already whole. Think about it. You've built friendships that matter. You've developed hobbies and interests that genuinely excite you. You've created routines and rhythms that bring you peace. Dating isn't the missing puzzle piece. It's an optional addition that would need to be worth disrupting what you've already built. This isn't fear of intimacy. This is having standards for what you allow into your carefully constructed life. Psychologists call this integrated autonomy. You've achieved what most people chase their entire lives. Second pattern you've developed: immunity to social pressure. This one's huge. Society pushes dating like it's a mandatory life milestone. Family asks when you're settling down. Friends try to set you up. Dating apps make it seem like everyone's constantly pairing off. But here's what's fascinating if you don't date. You've built psychological resistance to this pressure. You've questioned the narrative that romantic relationships equal success or happiness. You've realized that societal timelines don't have to be your timelines. This isn't stubbornness or rebellion. It's critical thinking. You've observed enough unhappy relationships to know that being partnered doesn't automatically mean being fulfilled. Research from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships shows that people who resist social pressure around dating report higher life satisfaction than those who date simply because they feel they should. You're not missing out. You're opting out intentionally. Third pattern: you prioritize depth over breadth in connections. Most dating operates on a volume model. Swipe more, meet more people, go on more dates. It's exhausting and shallow. If you don't date, you likely reject this entire approach. You'd rather have 3 profound friendships than 30 surface-level connections. You'd rather spend Friday night having a meaningful conversation with someone you trust than making small talk with a stranger at a restaurant. This isn't antisocial behavior. It's selective social investment. Psychologists have found that people who don't date often score higher on measures of relational depth. You give your emotional energy to connections that have already proven their value. Dating feels like gambling that energy on unknowns, and you're not interested in those odds. Your social needs are being met, just not through romantic dating. Fourth pattern, and this is the one people don't talk about enough. You experience social anxiety around dating specifically. Here's what's important to understand. If you're shy or introverted, the thought of sitting across from a stranger for an hour can feel paralyzing. What do you say? What if there's awkward silence? What if you're boring? What if they judge you? This isn't about lacking social skills. It's about the high-pressure performance aspect of dates. Psychologists have identified this as dating-specific social anxiety, and it's incredibly common. The fear isn't about commitment or intimacy. It's about the initial interaction itself. You might be completely comfortable with friends or in low-pressure social settings, but dates trigger a different kind of anxiety because there's an evaluative component. You're being assessed. They're being assessed. It feels like a job interview for your personality. And here's what research shows: this anxiety often stems from perfectionism or past experiences where you felt judged. The important thing to know is this isn't a character flaw. It's a legitimate psychological pattern that can be worked through if you want to, or accepted as part of who you are. Some people overcome it with practice and exposure. Others decide dating apps or traditional dating just isn't their path, and they meet people organically through shared interests, where the pressure is lower. Fifth pattern you've redefined: what fulfillment looks like. Here's the big one. Society sells one narrative. Romantic love is the ultimate form of human connection and life satisfaction. But if you don't date, you've probably discovered that's just not true for you. Maybe fulfillment comes from your career growth. Maybe it's creative projects that set your soul on fire. Maybe it's travel, or learning languages, or building something meaningful, or deep friendships, or solitude that lets you think clearly. You're not avoiding romance because you're damaged. You're avoiding it because you've found other things that genuinely fulfill you more. Research on happiness shows that people who define fulfillment on their own terms, not society's template, report significantly higher well-being. You're not living a half-life. You're living a complete one that just doesn't fit the traditional script. So there you have it. If you don't go on dates, you're likely someone with high self-sufficiency, immunity to social pressure, a preference for deep connections, possible social anxiety around dating specifically, or a personalized definition of what makes life fulfilling. And here's what matters: some of these patterns are choices, and some are challenges. Knowing which one applies to you helps you decide whether this is something to embrace or something to work on. If this resonated with you, make sure you're subscribed, because we explore human psychology and behavior patterns like this every single week. And seriously, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether this matched your experience. I genuinely read them all and love hearing your perspectives.